US Bank is an interesting but less popular credit card issuer. Now, they've recently released a new credit card, and a lot of people are hyping it up, but we're wondering, is it trash? My name is Sean, and I'm here with my co host.
Hi everyone, I'm Sherwin. Today on the Credit Card BS podcast, we're going to be delving deep into the US Bank Smartly card, doing some more critical analysis to answer the question whether it is worth getting. Now, US Bank is an interesting issuer. I would say, unlike Chase or American Express, they're more of a relationship-based issuer. So instead of spending a lot of money like marketing your credit cards or doing co-branded deals, they see credit cards as a way to bring in customers into their system and then hoping that they will use their other products, like maybe their checking and savings, their investing, maybe getting a mortgage with them, etc. So recently, they discontinued the Altitude Reserve card in the sense that they're no longer accepting new applications. Existing cardholders are safe for now. I feel this as sort of a bummer because Altitude Reserve was a really great card. The main draw of it was essentially for an effective $75 annual fee. You could get unlimited 3x points on all mobile wallet purchases, so Apple Pay or Google Pay. And then those points can be redeemed for 1.5 cents per point for travel. So essentially 4.5% unlimited cash back on that card. So they have gotten rid of that card. Now, Sean, I don't know what you think, but I've long suspected that this was probably not a profitable card to give away that many points for mobile wallet purchases. And they were using it as a loss leader to bring people into their ecosystem. So, Sean, what do you think about that theory?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, the card itself, right, provided a very competitive $325 annual travel credit with only a $400 annual fee. So that's like a net 75 profit for them. But then they are providing priority pass access, which does enable priority pass restaurants. So there really wasn't much of a spread there. And then you combine that with the fact that, the 3x on mobile wallet purchases, and then you can redeem 1.5. They're probably losing money on, basically any mobile wallet purchase. They're pretty much just always losing money on, assuming no one's paying interest. So, yeah, I don't think if the card was profitable at all, it definitely isn't much. And given the cost of marketing it and running it over.
Yeah, and not to mention it was a Visa Infinite card. So you were getting like top of the line travel protections with it for such a low effective annual fee. It's all, not quite as good as Chase Sapphire Reserve in terms of travel protections, but like pretty comparable for the most part for most people. So that was a really good card. Now, so US Bank took down applications for that card, and now they launched this new card called the Smartly Visa Signature Card. And I think this card sort of fits into their strategy of like using the credit cards as a way to bring people into their ecosystem. So this is a no annual fee card that has unlimited 2% cash back. Now, there's a lot of cards out there that offer 2% unlimited cash back, so that's itself is not special. But what is special is that you can get more cash back based on your qualifying balance with US Bank. So if you have at least $5,000, that 2% becomes 2.5%. If you have at least $50,000, that 2.5% becomes 3%. And then if you have over $100,000 with them, you're getting 4% unlimited cash back with US Bank on all purchases. Now, 4%, I would say, is a lot. Very few cards will offer you 4% on a category, much less 4% on all purchases, much less 4% unlimited without a cap. Now, granted, you do have to have quite a bit of assets with them. So, Sean, what do you feel about this value proposition? Is it competitive relative to other options?
I mean, okay, so here's the thing, right? This is, how do I say it? There's a lot of these products now that come out with this high perceived value, okay? Something that seems really good on paper, but maybe isn't as good when you look into it. And so like one example comparatively is like the Citi Custom Cash or the Chase Freedom cards, right? They offer 5x on certain categories, but there's a cap, and the cap is very low, right? Effectively $500 a month for both cards. And really that doesn't actually do that much. Now, in this case, it's a bit more interesting because, right, the 4% is uncapped. And so I think for certain consumers, right, if you're spending, very large amounts of money on the card for certain types of purchases, it could be very interesting, no question. 4%, right, if I'm spending several $100,000 a year, that's really, really, really significant. The thing is, you have to consider the opportunity cost, not only of being able to spend that money on other cards, right? Because there's other cards where you could earn points, and those points would be worth, let's say, 1.5 cents. So, let's say you compare it to a card that earns 2x and everything, but you're effectively able to get 1.5 from those points. Well, that was actually effectively a 3% card at the end of the day. Now, so I think there's an opportunity cost of other cards, but also the opportunity cost of putting your money in US Bank. So we'll talk about in a second some of the kind of the pitfalls of this and the requirements of leaving your money and what qualifies. But there is an opportunity cost, of course. I will say though, this is an interesting product compared to some of the other offerings, just because uncapped 4% has a lot more potential than a lot of the other cards that try to have these flashy cashback numbers. I mean, would you agree with that, Sherwin?
Yeah, I agree. I think Robinhood tried to push something like a gold tier that would allow you to have like 3% or something, which is pretty cool already. But I think 4% does sort of stand out. But as you mentioned, there are opportunity costs. So I want to talk about the issue of leaving $100,000 of assets with US Bank. Now, they do allow this in a wide variety of accounts, including checking accounts, money market savings accounts, CDs, IRAs, and their U.S. Bancorp investments and personal trust accounts. Business accounts don't qualify. So there is an opportunity cost for keeping so much of your assets with U.S. Bank. I would assume most people wouldn't want to just keep $100,000 in an account they're just sitting as cash and not really having any upside, especially with US Bank. Their checking and savings accounts are not known for having competitive interest rates at all. So, you're sort of losing money every day in a sense by putting there. Assuming, you can accept some market volatility and do some investments, that's a pretty big opportunity cost. Now, even if you are interested in this card and are willing, for the sake of getting the high tier 4% for this card, are willing to move some of your investments over, you could look at their brokerage account. It has a lot of fees compared to other options. A stock trade is subject to a commission of $4.95, for example. An annual account fee of $50 applies. And there's a bunch of other fees that also tax on that other brokerages like Schwab or Fidelity don't charge. So, yes, this is a no annual fee card, but if you're getting this for the sole purpose of getting the high tier 4% and you want to actually, keep your assets in some sort of investments with US Bank rather than their super low yield checking and savings accounts, you're going to be paying for it one way or the other. Now, it could still overall make sense if you do the math, like, I'm just parking some investments here. I'm not going to do that many trades one way or the other and not going to rack up all those commission fees. And even with the account fee, it still makes sense. So you could do the math and makes sense, but it's something to keep in mind before you go and transfer all of your assets to US Bank. You should really do the analysis up front. And that's what I'm concerned about, is people not thinking it through and just rushing toward the 4% because it's flashy. Sean, thoughts about that?
No, I totally agree. I think this card really makes sense for someone that has a good amount of assets and, more importantly, does a significant amount of credit card spend. If you're doing a vast amount of credit card spend, then that 4% really does add up. We're not cash back people per se, but we're not stupid. If you're spending a lot of money, several $100,000 a year on credit cards, 4% on that would actually add up to a quite significant amount of money, if you're doing a lot of spend. But the thing that you have to be careful on is, let's say you're someone that doesn't do a lot of spend. Maybe you have a couple $100,000 in assets, so you move $100,000 into US Bank. But the thing is, if you're not spending a lot of money on credit cards in general, you may be better off working on sign-up bonuses with your limited amount of spend, right? Because if I'm doing $100,000 a month in spend, let's say, okay, that's very difficult to focus on credit card sign-up bonuses because there's only so many credit card sign up bonuses, and I'm going to blow through them all very, very quickly if I'm spending, a huge amount of money. But let's say I'm spending like $2,000 to $5,000 a month. Okay. That is actually like a really good amount of money for reaching bonuses, because you can almost reach any bonus you want, but you can't quite reach every bonus to where there's always going to be another card you could get to just constantly working on bonuses. And so it would actually make more sense to just focus on big juicy sign-up bonuses. So that's where I'm, worried that people will get caught into this, is they'll go, okay, I've got $100,000 in assets. Let's move it to US Bank. This will be my card. And, I spend $2,000 to $3,000 a month on it. Great. I'm getting 4%. That's cool. That adds up to something, but it's not even close to what you'd be getting if you would focus on sign-up bonuses instead. But if you're someone, spending a lot of money, then it does make a difference.
I would say another dimension of this idea that it makes more sense for high spenders is that if you have a ton of spend and you're racking up all of these, transferable currency points and miles, at the end of the day, you're only going to be able to redeem that many airline points or hotel points. It gets to the point where it's better to have cash back because you're not going to be flying business and first class every single day, right? So that's another reason why, it may make sense if you have a lot of spend. But, even for me, I'd rather get 2x points on a transferable currency card where I know I can get at least 2 cents per point and don't have to put in as much work to get 4% cash back here. But, I can definitely see where there's a horizon under which after you spend that much money, it no longer makes sense. Now, I think there's another warning I have for people who are thinking about this card is, to be honest, I expect this to get nerfed. I think this is a genius marketing ploy to have people come in, move their assets to US Bank, pick up this card, and eventually, personally don't think the 4% unlimited cashback is that sustainable in the long term. Generally, the most banks can afford, if you look at the whole industry, is 2% unlimited cashback for a non-category spend and 3% category like dining. To the extent that they are offering more than those numbers, there's generally catch. For example, the Amex Gold does offer 4x on dining and supermarkets, but it is capped. The card has a pretty hefty annual fee. The points cannot directly be redeemed for cashback of 1 cent per point, so they're never actually paying out like 4% cashback directly, right? Even cards like the City Custom Cash that are offering 5x points on a certain category, those are capped to $500 a month. So essentially, they're not paying out more than $25 of cashback from that 5% per month, right? So it's very different from like unlimited. Frankly, I would even say an unlimited 3% cashback is not sustainable, much less 4%. We've seen other US Bank cards that have been offered with high multipliers get nerfed, and that makes me nervous about this card. For example, the Altitude Go used to be a no annual fee card that offered unlimited 4x on dining, and now that 4x category is capped to $2,000 a quarter. So, a similar catch to one of the ones I've mentioned in the industry previously. The Altitude Connect used to offer 4x on gas, and now they capped it to $1,000 a quarter. And to make it worse, those points are now worth 0.8 cents per point unless you redeem through their travel portal. So that 4x becomes 3.2% for most redemptions. And that's kind of showing you how it's not profitable to keep it in the long term, right? Even looking beyond US Bank, other cards that have offered cashback in the 4% range have been nerfed. A famous example being the Uber credit card. It's kind of an old example because it hasn't been around for a while, precisely because they offered too much cashback, 4% on dining. That got mega nerfed. The cardless cards, for example, they have like Boston Celtics credit card, other co-branded credit cards. I remember they offered one that had 4% back on dining. Now they moved it down to 3% or 2%. So I would say I'm more likely than not, whether you look at other examples from US Bank or other examples from different issuers, offering this high of a percentage cash back is likely to be a short-term marketing ploy than a long-term thing that I think they're intending to keep for a while. And considering the fact that this card doesn't have a sign-up bonus either, right? So this might be part of a short-term sign-up bonus in a sense. Sean, what do you think?
No, I think those are all valid points. I think yeah, you're right. Eventually, this is not going to be profitable. They're basically just inviting MSers to come in and abuse this. Let's be real. 4% cashback rate on any kind of, again, we're not going to go into MS here, but like, any person that would do MS, again, I don't do MS, but any person that does MS, I'm sure any of their methods involve a lower fee than that. And so there's going to be people that just abuse this and just rack up a ton of cash back on this, and it's going to be nerfed. You're 100% right. And I think it really is just inviting people with like a high amount of assets to move it in. Card gets nerfed. People go, oh, well, that sucks. But like, am I really going to move all my assets out of US Bank? Probably not. It's already there, whatever. And then US Bank gets a bunch of assets under management, and it's a win for them. Yeah. And also the fact that there isn't a sign-up bonus like that, as you said, like that definitely, makes it so that they can afford to pay this 4% for a while, because that part of the marketing budget for the card is now going to the 4% cashback as opposed to a sign-up bonus. So the customer acquisition cost per a new card sign-up is way lower up front, but then long term it's going to bleed them dry, and yeah, they're going to have to nerf it eventually. It's just a question of when, not if, really.
Yeah, I agree. And I honestly, I don't recommend people MS with US Bank. I've seen reports of like people's altitude reserves getting shut down, for example, because they bought a gift card using the mobile wallet, right, or stuff like that. So I would say they are much more sensitive to that than like Chaser City, so just watch out. I would say the main other offering that's comparable to this US Bank Smartly card tier system is Bank of America. I'm not going to go into that much detail because there's already so much information about it, but that's a program that has been around for like a long time, hasn't really been nerfed. Essentially, at the top tier, if you have $100,000 of assets with them, you get the 75% bonus. So their unlimited 1.5% cashback card becomes 2.625%. And then their cash rewards card, which lets you pick a 3% category of your choice, becomes 5.25%. So those are pretty competitive percentages. Obviously, 2.625% is still lower than US Bank's 4%, but then again, BOA has had this around a long time, so it might be more sustainable. So Sean, thoughts about this comparison? Would you go for one over the other?
I mean, to be honest with you, I feel like these cards, the ideal person that could profit off these is someone who already has a lot of assets, because really where this is going to be to make the difference, as I said, is someone who's spending a very significant amount of money, because that's really where that percentage difference is going to add up, as opposed to just going for sign-up bonuses. So I could see an argument of someone with a really good amount of assets to just go for both. If you could get the the cash rewards, your choice category becomes 5.25%, and then the US Bank 4% on everything. If you have enough assets to move around to where it doesn't make a huge difference to you, and I understand that's a very it's a small percentage of people, but again, this card really would benefit that small percentage of people that could move their assets around and who have a lot of spending to justify it. I think that would be an interesting play if you're someone that's like, wow, I actually I got a lot of money. Let's see if we can get some good multipliers on these cards. That I could see being fairly significant. But I think for the vast majority of people, if you don't have a huge amount of assets, if you don't spend a ton of money, I would actually go into the math a bit more, because you see this flashy percentage figure and you go, wow, I'm going to be saving so much. And really at the end of the day, compared to churning sign-up bonuses, it's not as much as you would think. Again, it's situation dependent, but actually run through the math, see it. It's not going to be nearly as much as the marketers would like you to believe.
I agree. So let's wrap up here. What do you think about the new US Bank Smartly card? Is it trash? Is it an excellent opportunity? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Also, if you enjoyed today's video, please consider liking it and subscribing to our channel. Also, if you're interested in applying for any credit card, please consider using our referral links down in the description below. It greatly helps support the channel. Sean, why don't you plug our Discord?
So if you want to connect with an elite group of award travelers and credit card enthusiasts entirely for free, check out the Travel Lane Discord group at the link in the description. You will learn a ton, I promise you. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next week.